Good morning, Morai v'Rabotai, Bruchim Abayim. We're continuing on Masechet Succah. We're on Daf Lamed Chet Amud Aleph, on top Mishnah, 6 lines down from the top of the Amud. This Amud is being learned as a Zchut Refuah Shelema for Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid, for Michael Ben Nahid, for Esther Bracha Bat Chayam, and for Avraham Jamshid Ben Tajgol. They should all have Refuah Shelema Be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. This week's learning of the community has been dedicated graciously by the Shea family, Dayan family, and Cohen family. This should be an ultimate zchut for all their mishpachot. Amen. So we are starting now another Mishnah of a person that did not take his Arba Minim on time. He is traveling, didn't have with him during his travel the Arba Minim, and now comes home and he has to take it. If he is traveling and he didn't have his Arba Minim with him to take, and now he comes home, when he comes home, he should take it when he gets home. And if he didn't take it when he entered the house, he takes it even al shulchano, which means you have to interrupt your meal to take it. If you remember that, I didn't take my arba minim, and you're mamash in the middle of eating your cholent, you have to take it, stop the meal, take your lulav al etrog, and then you can continue the meal. So that's not al shulchano. On your table, literally in the middle of Suda, you would have to take it. Lo netalo. If he didn't shake lulav shacharit in the morning, forgot to do it, or didn't do it during Seudah, then yitol ben harbaim. Then he should take it during the evening time. Shekol hayom kasher lelulav, because the entire day is kasher for lulav. So that is the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, I understand. Amrat, not lo al shulchano. You told me that you have to interrupt your meal to shake lulav, which indicates lememra de mafsik. Indicates that you have to, so you can't wait and say, okay, fine, gonna wait until I bench, and then afterwards, I can't do that. You remember during the Suda, you have to stop the Suda. But that doesn't align with what we learned in Masechet Shabbat. Now, Masechet Shabbat, Daf Tet, we have a simple halacha. You're eating your meal, and you remember you haven't davened mincha. Right? Familiar? Now, you're not allowed to start a Suda when the time of mitzvah has arrived. That's a regular halacha. Not only that, you can't start a Suda within the half hour before samuch lemincha. Within half hour before the time of the mitzvah arrives. Right? This we're going to have very soon by B'dikat Chametz. You go home, you can't have supper before you do B'dikat Chametz. If the time of B'dikat Chametz is approaching within the half hour before, the Mishnah says there are a bunch of things you cannot do. You can't start getting a haircut. You cannot start a Seudah. You can't even start learning, perhaps, when it's time, because we are concerned that certain activities, but once you start them, they take time. And then before you know it, the time passed, you were completely oblivious. You forgot about it because you were so involved, and then you end up not doing the mitzvah. Tomorrow morning you remember, I didn't say a mincha, or however it could happen. Therefore, Chazal banned it that when the time is approaching, even half hour before, you can't do it. So that's the halacha for mincha. You cannot start Seudah once the time for mincha is approaching. What if I remember in the middle of Seudah that I haven't davened mincha yet? So the time of mincha has approached. I started, by mistake, whatever, and now it's time for mincha. I'm in the middle of eating my cholent. So what do I do now? I don't know, cholent in the afternoon, but right, middle of Seudah. So the Gemara says in Masechet Shabbat, if you remember it, eno mafsik. You don't interrupt the Seudah. Right? See, imagine he started certainly beforehand, there will be the halacha. So says the Gemara, That Gemara in Masechet Shabbat seems to indicate that you don't have to stop. Im hitchilu en mafsikin. And yet here you're telling me that if you started Seudah, you're in the middle of Seudah, you remember you didn't do Arba Minim, you have to stop the Seudah and take your lulav and shake it. So how do you reconcile the two? Amar Rav Safra. Rav Safra says, no problem. Lo kashya. Hadi'ika sha'ud bayom. Hadaleka sha'ud bayom. It depends. If you have time during the day, mincha, the time hasn't arrived, but you have plenty of time left to say mincha. Fine. So then we're not going to bother you to stop your Seudah to daven mincha, finish up, say your Birkat Hamazon, then daven. But this Mishnah in Sukkah Daf Lamed Chet is speaking about a case that you have 5 minutes before Shkia. Right? No shahud left. You got to stop that Seudah and shake your lulav. That's what he's talking about. Versus, wait a second. Amar Rava. Rava says, I don't understand. My kushya. Yeah, why do you have to even answer this? Why would Rav Safra have to even answer this? You really have to come on to a chiluk that one of them is the different scenarios. You only say they're different scenarios if you have your back against the wall. Right? Think about it. If I ask you a question, and the question, the two elements of the question are like night and day. They're completely apples and oranges. Do you have to go and make the scenario a different? No, you can answer them within the same scenario. It's the same 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And still they're very different. The question doesn't even start, says Rava. Why? Because davening mincha, last time I checked, is only a mitzvah darabanan. Now, parenthetically, as Machloket Rishonim, Rambam and Ramban, the mitzvah of tefillah v'derunah is the Rabbanan or the Oraita. Rambam holds davening be'etzim is the Oraita. Once a day tefillah u'le'ovdo b'chol levavchem, like the Gemara darshins, ezeu avodashi balev heve omer zu tefillah. Now, so the first tefillah of the day, Arvit, Shachrit, that's the Oraita. Mincha is the Rabbanan. Ramban holds anyways the tefillah concept is the Rabbanan, unless, of course, the Ramban says if it's etzara, right? Or the pasuk says utkatem bechasosrot, when it's etzara that you have to call out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is a mitzvah d'oraita. When you're in trouble, when you're agonizing over something, especially communally, and you call out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that mitzvah of reaching out to Hashem and davening is a mitzvah d'oraita. But a regular, daily activity of tefillah is the Rabbanan. So however you slice it, the mincha is the Rabbanan. But last I checked, first day of Sukkot, the mitzvah of Arba Minim is the Oraita. So is it really that surprising that I have to stop my meal for a mitzvah the Oraita, and I don't have to stop my meal for a mitzvah the Rabbanan? The question doesn't even start, says Rava. So therefore, says Rava, Rav Safra never said his chiluk on that. You know what Rav Safra commented on? And again, remember, Rav Safra is the one that says, this is when you have time during the day, this is when you don't have time during the day. So Rava says, can't be Rav Safra said this on Mincha, on Sukkah Lamed Chet and Shabbat Taftet. Comparison of Tefillat Mincha, stopping the Seudah and Lulav and Arba Minim. Can't be. Because they're not even comparable. There's no kasha to be asked from Masechet Shabbat. So delete Masechet Shabbat for now. The question that Rav Safra was commenting on is within our Mishnah. Because says Rava, if you learn our Mishnah carefully, there is a discrepancy between the beginning and the end. We all felt it. When we read it, we all felt it. Now we're going to read it again and feel it again, right? And then you'll see how Rava puts this together. Says Rava, and Amar Rava, Ikasha Hakash. This is the question. You're telling me this guy that did not shake Arba Minim, now he comes home, he has to take his lulav, has to shake lulav, even during Seudah. Not lo al shulchano. Right? You have to take it during Seudah. And then you tell me, if he didn't take it during his Seudah, do it afterwards. No problem. Right? So, which one is it? You either have to stop your Seudah or you could do it afterwards. Alma de mafsik. When you tell me that I have to say it, shake lulav, take lulav during the Suda, that indicates I have to stop my Suda. Ve'hadartani lo natal shachrit. You told ben arba'im. Then you tell me, oh, no problem. If you didn't take it during shacharit, you could take it during the evening time. Alma lo mafsik. That indicates that it's like not a big deal. You took it in the shacharit, chazak baruch. Didn't do it in the afternoon, no problem. So am I mafsik? Am I not mafsik? If lo netalo shacharit not lo ben arba'im, let the poor guy eat his seudah. If it's not such a big deal, and if it is such a big deal, so then what's lo netalo shacharit? Says Rava, on that, Rab Safra is commenting. Amar Rab Safra lo kasha. Hadika shahut beyom, hadaleka shahut beyom. It really depends. Says Rab Safra, yeah, if you're eating and there's plenty of time left, right? So it's different. Then lo netalo shacharit, not lo ben arba'im. But if you're eating and the time is running out, then even not only in a regular case that you have to stop whatever you're doing, even if you're in middle of Suda, you have to stop. In middle of Suda, which normally we would let you just finish, right? In Masechet Shabbat Daftet, right? Normally when you're in the middle of eating, we just let you do what you do. Here we would stop you because there's no time left during the day. That's what Rav Safra is talking about. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Zera, says, wait a second, Chacham, Rava, that also doesn't make sense. Rava said that the original thing didn't make sense. Now Rav Zera is telling Rava, says, your thing also doesn't help that much because, says Rav Zera, my kushya, again, what's the question? Dilma, mitzvah lafsuki, ve'ilav pasiki tol ben harbain. So I don't understand. This is a simple read. Maybe the halacha is that if you're in the middle of Suda, even if you have 10 hours left, even if it's mamash your Sudat Shaharit, still, it's mitzvah to be mafsik. Maybe that's the halacha. If you didn't do it, when the Mishnah says, lo netalo shacharit, doesn't mean that you're allowed to not take it during the shacharit time. It means if you b'di'evet didn't do it, meaning you were supposed to stop, you didn't. But b'di'evet question, you did an avera. Now you didn't. So what do? Ben arba'im, you still, the Mishnah's chidush is that this is not a morning mitzvah, this is a day mitzvah. And that's how he ends the Mishnah. Mishum de'ati, the Gemara says, Mishum shekol hayom kasher lelulav. Because the entire day is kasher for lulav. You can do it until the last moment. That's the chidush, says Rabbi Zera. So therefore, it's not a question why the Gemara says, not lo al shulchano, that you have to stop your suda. Yeah, that's lachatchila de halacha. You got to stop your suda. And when the seifa of the Mishnah, when the last part of the Mishnah says, lo netalo shacharit, means if you did an avera, if you didn't listen, if you didn't stop your suda, you still have time. Still have time until the last moment of the day, because kol hayom kasher le lulav. Shekol hayom kasher le lulav. Ela amar Rab Zera. So Rab Zera says, I'll tell you what the question is. Right? We go back to the original thing we said. The original thing we said was that Rab Safra's comment was to reconcile a question, a potential problem from Masechet Shabbat Daftit. Remember? Back to the original question and answer. Our Mishnah in Sukkah Lamid says, not la shulchano, indicating you got to stop your Suda. The Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says, if you started your Suda, lo yafsik. You don't have to stop the Suda for Mincha. And on that, Rav Safra came to answer. Now, you, Rava, this is Rabbi Zera talking to Rava, you didn't like that because you said, well, one of them is the Oraita, one of them is the Rabbanan, right? So you didn't like the question. When we were suggesting that Rav Safra is coming to comment to answer this question, you said, well, what's the question? One of them is the Oraita, one of them is the Rabbanan. There's no question. That's how you wanted to say it, right? But you failed to understand, says Rab Zera, that this is not talking about our Mishnah, Dafta Metchet, Amud Aleph, is not talking about Yom Tov Rishon. You, for some reason, assumed that we're talking about the mitzvah of lulav on the first day of Chag. Mitzvah of lulav, taking arba minim, in the first day of Chag is mitzvah deoraita. But in second day of Chag, third day of Chag, fourth day of Chag is mitzvah derabanan. Who told you we're talking about the first day of Chag? We're talking about the second day of Chag. It's derabanan. You came home, you haven't shook lulav yet, and you sat to eat, and our Mishnah is telling you that you stop your Seudah. And yet, the Mishnah in the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says you don't stop your Seudah. Now it's a very fair question. Do I stop my Seudah for a mitzvah derabanan, or do I not stop my Seudah? That's a bomb kasha. And on that, Rav Safra is coming to say that it depends really how much time you have left. So it's a good question and answer. And says Rav Zera, I will prove to you that our Mishnah is not talking about the first day of Sukkot. That would be amazing, right? If you could prove that, then that's a win. So says the Gemara. But the kasha decha hada oraita hada rabbanan hacha b'yom tov sheni derabanan askin. Are we talking about the second day of Yom Tov, which is derabanan only? Dai Kanami says it's meduyak in the language of the Mishnah that we are not talking about the first day of Sukkot, but rather the second day and on. Mide katani misheba baderech. The Mishnah starts that you're coming from a far way. You were traveling. Now, guess what you can't do on first day of Yom Tov? You can't be traveling because there's Isra of Tchum on Yom Tov, just like it is in Shabbat. So therefore, when it says Mishabat Baderech, it cannot be possibly talking about the first day of Sukkot. It's talking about the second day and on. Ve'en be'ado lulav de'isar kadatach b'yom tov rishon. Mishari Yom Tov Rishon would not be mutar to travel outside the Tchum, and hence, says Reb Zera, there is no problemo with what we said in the beginning. Reb Safra is talking about the reconciliation of this Mishnah with the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, because both of them are derabanans, and one of them we stop for, one of them we don't stop for, and the halacha would be, really depends on whether or not you have time. If you have time during the day, you started your Seudah before the time of Mincha, now the time of Mincha has arrived, you don't stop your Seudah for going on. And says the Gemara, if you have, on the other hand, a Seudah that is on Yom Tov of Sukkot, second year on, which is also mitzvah derabanan to shake lulav, and the day is passing, and you're not going to have time left during the day, you stop that Seudah of yours, and you shake lulav in the middle, you don't let you continue your Seudah. So says the Mishnah, next Mishnah. Mishaya Evid, now we spoke about shaking lulav in Halil, right? So we started the halachot of shaking lulav. We said, where do you do it? Vehechan hayu menanein, behodu la'Hashem techila v'sof, right? That was the Mishnah in Lamed Zayin Amud Bet, that we shake lulav during Halil. So we already talked about the fact that the part of the tefillah and the shaking of lulav is saying Halil. So once that was said, let's discuss all of the halachot of Halil, right? So now we're going to deviate into learning some halachot of Halil. How do you say Halil? Mishaya eved o isha o katan makrinoto. If you had an eved, which means an eved Kenani, which is chayav b'mitzvot like a woman, you have an eved Kenani, or you have a woman, your wife, or a katan, your child, which is a minor. Makrinoto, they were reading the Halil for you. So this is a fellow that clearly is not reading himself because he can't read himself, because he never learned. You must answer word for word after what they say, right? Hallelujah, hallelujah. Avdei Hashem, Avdei Hashem. You have to, they're reading and they're helping you out, and you read along with them, right? Masha and Omrin, what they say. You repeat after what they say. V'tavolo me'eran, he shall be cursed, this person, right? That means shame on him, that he didn't learn how to say Halil himself. You rely on an Eved, on a slave to say for you, on a minor could read and you can't read, go learn how to read. Take responsibility for yourself, right? Shame on him. That's what he's saying. Now, or either that, or he knows how to. If you do know how to, why are you having an Eved read for you? Read it yourself if you know how to read, right? So says the Gemara, but if you have not a minor, but an adult that is reading for you, not for you, but is reading with you together, then you have a concept of Shomea Ke'oneh. Then you have a concept that you could listen, and that will be considered for you as if you're saying it. You just answer after him, hallelujah. That was, as we'll see in Rashi later on, that was a takanav nevi'im. Takanav nevi'im was, even though that everyone is doing it together, you want it to sound like an orchestra that people are saying together, singing together for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So everyone says certain parts of hallelujah together. So that you do say. But the rest of it, you don't have to say. Why? Because of a concept called Shomea Ke'oneh. Right? That when you listen to something, it is considered as if you actually said it. Now, this is a concept that we learn from, I think Gemara learns, this is one of the main places in Shas that discusses this. This is a Shas concept, one of those things that we deal with on daily basis, every day of our life, every week. We have things that are set to be, you listen to Megillah, Al Mikra Megillah, you have to read the Megillah, right? So why don't you read it? Oh, well, because I listened to it. But who said you can listen to it? You have to read the Megillah, right? Well, because if I listen to it, it's considered I read it. How do you know that, right? So we learned that from a pasuk in Melachim Bet, right? That when Yoshiyahu was a young king, he took the mantle of returning and making a U-turn in Klal Yisrael, turning everything around. That was really invoked by the Sefer Torah that was found open on the Parashat of Kilalot, and they read it in front of Yoshiyahu, and Yoshiyahu, this young tzaddik, got up from his throne, and he said, because they read the Kilalot, and in there it says, Arur asher lo yakim et divrei Torah, so cursed shall be a person that does not uphold the words of this Torah. And he got up. He was a young boy. He had sat on the throne after his predecessor, the father, and it was a Rasha, and he gets up and he says, Alayla Akim. He says, on me it is to establish and to uphold the words of the Torah. And then he sent to Huldah Neviah, right? To Huldah Neviah. What does this mean exactly? And Huldah Neviah says, this that you read, right? Well, he never read. They were reading in front of him. And Gemara discusses that to be the source for Shomea Ke'oneh, right? For when a person listens to something that is considered for them as though they said it. This actually is a very deep concept in Halakha. It turns to be a machloket Rashi and Tosafot, how to understand it, right? To make it very overly simplified, would be like this. If I am listening to you, and you're saying Kiddush, right? We used to do this every Friday night, right? Every Friday night, a father, the household says Kiddush, and everyone listens. Everyone has the mitzvah of saying, the chiyuv of saying Kiddush. But they don't necessarily say Kiddush themselves. They listen to the Kiddush. Right? So how does that exactly work? Is it that it's the equivalent of me saying the Kiddush? So Shomea Ke'oneh means we assume that you said it. Mamash. Or that no, we don't assume you said it. You didn't say anything. You were quietly listening. But it means that every halacha that would be applicable to someone that said it, it is applicable to you. You have the din of oneh. Not that we assume that you actually said it, but that you have the din, the halacha of someone that said it. So therefore, you fulfilled your obligation by listening to it. You say, well, Rabbi, what's the difference? Right? Well, how about this? You're in the middle of Shemona Esrei, and the Chazan gets to Kedusha. You want to answer Kadosh, 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 Chaval, right? So you want to keep quiet and quietly listen, or they sing Kaddish. I want to quietly listen to Amen Yeshem Rabbah. Can you do it or not? Well, if you say Shomea Ke'oneh means it's equivalent of me saying the words, then you cannot do that, because that's hefsek. If you would answer actual Amen Yeshem Rabbah, Kadosh, 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 in the middle of your Shemona Esrei, you just interrupted your Shemona Esrei. You can't do that. It's asur, right? But if you say that, no, it's not an interruption, because no, you talked. It's just that we give you the halacha, the benefits of the thing, without the trouble, right? So then, you can just keep quiet and listen to the Shalach Tzibur, as they say, Kaddish or Kedusha. Another halacha, a person that needs to use the facilities at some point, it's asur for him to say a bracha, right? He doesn't have a guf naki, as we would call it. He doesn't have a body that's prepared, right? Kalas motai tomarna, we have to have a proper body, and you need to go to the bathroom badly, then you can't daven, you can't say bracha. Now imagine this person wants to listen to Havdalah, and they're not going to wait for him. He needs to go to the bathroom, so he can't say bracha. Fine, Chazaku Baruch. Can you listen? If you tell me that it's like mamash, you're saying the bracha, it's asur, right? If you say that you're not saying the bracha, you're just benefiting from the results of a bracha being said, then Shomea Ke'oneh will be mutar in that case, even though that you're not fit for saying a bracha, you can still benefit from being Shomea Ke'oneh, listen to your Havdalah, and then run to the bathroom. So that's the concept of Shomea Ke'oneh that we see over here in our Mishnah. I'll just finish the Mishnah over here. We'll probably come back to this tomorrow morning. But says the Mishnah, the last line, Makom shnagul lichpol lichpol, the places in Hallel that they repeat the same pasuk, you should repeat the pasuk. And lifshot, the places that they say only once, yifshot, you only say it once as well. Levarech yevarech, if they say the bracha at the end of Hallel, the bracha v'yalelucha, then yevarech, you could also follow and say the bracha hakol keminhag hamedina. Everything follows the minhag of your place, which again, this becomes a massive discussion. 4 places in Shas, whether or not you say bracha on minhag. The whole thing of saying the bracha on minhag really stems from this concept in Shas, which is discussed several times, 4 times during the Shas and the Tosafot, which Be'ezrat Hashem will discuss and read by Be'ezrat Hashem at some point. Chazak Baruch.